Welcome everybody to another great episode of Top Job with me, Mwenesi Musalia. Today I am joined by a phenomenal guest. As you may know, by 2050, the world's population, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, is set to hit about 2 billion people. Obviously, that means that there needs to be a sustainable solution to finding effective ways to protect our forests, but also have good, innovative, clean energy to burn for cooking and other things. I'm joined by the CEO and founder of Burn, Jikokoa.
Yeah.
Is that
Well, Jikokoa. That's but close enough. Yeah. Yeah. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Peter
yeah.
Scott.
Yeah.
Great to meet you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having
Good.
me on the show. Yeah.
Good. So we've caught up earlier before the show, and there's lots that we talked about. But for those guys watching, who is Peter Scott, and how did he get started in this business?
Well, yeah, I've kind of devoted my whole life to trying to save forests in Africa. When I was 20, I went to Congo and I saw deforestation there for charcoal production, and I really, got down on my knees and wept, and really said I'm going to devote my whole life to trying to save forests. And so since then it's been a bit of a circuitous journey. I went and I was an activist, and I climbed old growth trees on the west coast of Canada and blocked logging roads and things like that.
Did you chain yourself to a tree?
Well, did I actually chain myself? I was in a tree and they were asking me to get out of the tree, and I said, no, I'm not going to get out of the tree. So yeah, it sounds better when you said chain. But we would lock our arms across logging roads and turn the logging trucks back to try to save this sort of last one pristine part of Canadian rainforest, and we were actually successful. So I think that part, doing that and seeing that I had agency or power to affect that kind of change, was a real it kind of inspired me to do other things along the way. It's often people do actions like that, they get arrested, they go to jail, and you don't hear from them for 50 years. So I was lucky.
How did you stay out of jail? And
well, actually, though, this is not what really the story is about, but it's kind of an interesting thing, is that we agreed to kind of get arrested, flood the jails. So we had hundreds of people in jails, and we actually managed to get them to change. There was an injunction against people standing on the road. Anyways, we got them to change the law so that more people could come and turn this into the largest civil disobedience action in Canadian history.
And where did the concept of clean burning stoves come out of all of that, like in the middle of being arrested and all of that stuff?
Right. Basically, the universe told me to make stoves to try to save forests in Africa, which was, kind of the original vision from 1990. And so it was really through that sort of 3-day event of fasting in the desert allowed that to happen. And we were talking about it earlier. It was a very, very profound moment in my life. And luckily, I found like the one place in the world that was sort of doing stove design at that time, and it was a little tiny town in Oregon, in the west coast of the United States. And so, I showed up and I said, there was kind of a bunch of hippies, really, like living in the woods, growing onions. And I said, yeah, I'm here to save the forests of Africa through stove design. And they were like, yeah, go plant some onions.
I want to take you back very briefly. How did you end up in Africa in the early 90s? What brought you here?
I was really involved in the anti-apartheid movement. So I led a group called Students for a Free South Africa in Canada. Yeah, and so I ended up after leaving uni. I wanted to go and be in Africa after doing all of that work.
And did you study anything to do with the environment in uni?
No, actually, I studied history.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was, very involved in the kind of environmental movement and in the anti-apartheid movement. It was the late '80s. It's kind of what we did back then.
Cool. You're now chilling with these guys in this tiny place in Oregon, and you've got this epiphany that you got to do stoves and come back to Africa. Can you walk me through the journey back to Africa?
Well, it's sort of trying to encapsulate 50 years of life, but okay, we'll try to do it in 3 minutes. So through studying stove design, I started working in Central America, and we brought this sort of revolutionary type of clean burning cook stove there. And then the Germans found me, and they said, you should come to... The Germans found you? It's not like I was hiding from the Germans. The Germans found me, and they said, you should come to Africa and do this. And I was like, well, of course, that's the whole goal. So in 2002, they brought me there, and so I worked as a consultant from 2002 until 2010.
They were making clean.
They were trying to, but they didn't really have any idea. And so at that point, I was considered one of the sort of experts in that field after that period of time. And so I came and I did projects all over Southern Africa, and they were very successful, and we won awards and built institutional stoves and household stoves. And then in 2009, I came back to Kenya. I was getting kind of frustrated with the cook stove space because it wasn't having, I was a consultant. I wasn't having the impact that I wanted to have. And I said, someone should just raise like $10 million, build a modern manufacturing facility, make the world's cleanest stoves right here in Kenya.
Who knew about the work that you were doing and how much of an impact that had on your ability to raise that kind of money and to start the business here in Kenya?
Yeah, well, so the interesting thing from there, after having that realization, there was a story in the New Yorker that came out about cook stoves, and people didn't really understand the sort of the challenges with Jikos and cook stoves. You sort of mentioned it briefly at the beginning, but it's like the scale of the challenge globally and in Africa is so massive. And so just a couple of things to kind of note is, 500,000 people die each year in sub-Saharan Africa from breathing smoke from three-stone fires or traditional cooking devices.
Oh, wow.
500,000 people, so, more than malaria, HIV combined. So no one even really thinks about it.
Yeah,
it's also it's also an economic crisis. People spend about $15 billion a year on the continent in charcoal.
15 billion?
$15 billion is the total annual spend on charcoal. So it's bankrupting people. And then I also at the same time got Foreign Policy magazine, which is another big magazine in the US.
Oh, wow.
Listed me as kind of one of the top 100 global thinkers. So those two things happened within the space of a few months. So all these people in Vashon said, wow, this guy's the real deal. So the whole town kind of rallied to help launch burn manufacturing in this little town.
That's incredible.
In Washington State. And so, at that point we had, still no resources. I just basically took my life savings and kind of invested it to start the business. Then Fortune magazine, which is another big magazine. I'm name dropping all these magazines.
No, absolutely.
Fortune magazine invited me to speak at an event a few months later, and so I did a pitch competition. So all these startup companies are pitching, and I think 10 of us pitched, and I won. And so in the audience was General Electric and OPIC, which is the U.S. Overseas Private Investment Corporation, and then they both came to me and said, "Yeah, we want to fund you." So they had $4 million to fund the launch of Burn.
And you picked Kenya. Why?
I just, after working in Africa for 12 years, I think if you'd spent time on the continent, you realize this would be the only place you would do that. So, there's a manufacturing sector. I mean, the Kenyan people are amazing, such like hardworking, dedicated, energized people. That was just kind of a no-brainer to do it here. And of course, the market is here as well because 80% of the people still rely on wood or charcoal for cooking, and so it just made sense on many levels to do it.
Can you just tell me a little bit about what the factory does, what the business, the actual business of Burn and Jikokoa as a product?
Yeah.
Just give me a bit of a rundown.
Sure.
of that.
Yeah. So maybe we'll give a little bit of a backstory to kind of frame it. So, I've been doing cook stoves or Jikos for 20 years. I've spent the first 10 years, trying to get people not to use charcoal. Because I just said, obviously charcoal is very destructive. We want to get people to just not use it at all.
So what would be the alternative?
Well, I mean, like slowly things like LPG are coming in. But, LPG on the continent now is maybe 5%. Provides cooking needs for about 5% of the population,
right.
And it's still, overwhelmingly this 85% biomass. Kerosene is another option. I think, we'll talk about that more a little bit later, but we have a number of new innovative products that are separate from either LPG or charcoal or wood, and we'll talk about those in the factory. But so after trying to get people not to use charcoal at all, I said, let's just make the world's most fuel-efficient charcoal stove. So when we launched the business in 2010, when we made sort of the first Jikokoa back then, we sort of assembled a team of amazing engineers and designers to build kind of the perfect Jiko.
What are some of the challenges you faced in that? Some of the ones that stood out, because it sounds super romantic. When we discuss it, but were there days where you just thought, maybe let me go hang out in the desert and rethink this?
Well, what happened when GE and OPIC said that they were going to lend us $4 million? They didn't say it was going to take 3 years to close the deal. So between 2011 and 2013 or 2010, 2013, there was no money.
That's a huge lesson.
So I had to launch the company with no money. We had no equity. There's no equity investment. It was just waiting on this debt. So I burned through all of my savings. Of course, it creates a bunch of different challenges to try to run a business without money. Because if you're a CEO without money, you're just a crazy person. You're just like.
And so besides the obvious passion and that deep desire to really sort the environment out, and which you obviously had. What keeps you going in those 3 years to be able to say, yeah, I'm pushing this thing over?
Well, for me, I'm not a serial entrepreneur, or I'm not a, I don't view myself as an entrepreneur. I have a mission, which is try to save forests on the globe and in Africa. So to me, this is just the mission. So I knew it wasn't going to be easy.
Did you have a support system?
I think my wife was supportive of it. I mean, I think she wasn't that happy about going to the food bank. But I think that because we had a team of people that were really dedicated and were willing to sacrifice, and I think because my team really got that I was going to be the last man. I wasn't going to give up. I would be the last man. Right. And they say the only reason that startups fail is because the founders quit. Right?
That's right. Exactly.
It's the only reason.
Exactly.
And so my team was just very committed. Like, we would do it, and we would sort of laugh, like, oh, once again, there's no money. We would just say, yeah, we're not gonna give up. So that was sort of the lesson that I learned, is that maybe I shouldn't have given away that much. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. I don't really care about money. I'm not driven by that. I have a nice dawa, some sparkling water, roof over my head. I'm really fine, because it's like the world is in crisis, right? I mean, this is not the time to be thinking about, your own personal, can I drive a nice car now? Like, nobody cares.
Right.
Like literally, the fabric of the universe, and not of the universe, of the Earth, is really it really frightened. So to me, I'm kind of shocked. Like, what is everyone doing? Like, are you not noticing what's happening? Like, you don't think climate change is real? Do you not see the ice caps melting? Do you not see extinction and loss of biodiversity? So yeah, it's sometimes a bit hard for me because I feel like I'm living in a different universe from the people. Because for me, the Earth is, without it, we're nothing. So yeah, hopefully people get excited about my mission and my vision, and then they'll want to participate in it. They'll not be driven by money.
In this time that I've sat with you, I can see why someone would stick with you for that period of time. I mean, the energy is certainly infectious, and you've got a deep passion for this.
Yeah.
So I think maybe we can pop over to the factory and check it out and see what else you've got going on.
Let's go light some Jikos.
All right.
Okay, great.
Good man.
Thanks, Anand.
Can you walk me through your factory and the step-by-step on how to make the Jikokoa?
Yeah, sure. Well, welcome to Sub-Saharan Africa's first and only modern Jiko manufacturing facility. So there's nothing else like this in Africa. And what's kind of unique about it is that we're not just taking parts made from China or somewhere else and assembling them. We do everything here from scratch. So raw materials in, finished goods out. So for example, we'll start with some stainless steel sheets, and these will arrive in. About half the materials come from Kenya, half from overseas. So they arrive here, they're stored in raw materials, and then we go over here.
Are there specific size and dimension and weight?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So there's about 8 different discrete parts that go into it. So different types of mild steel, galvalume, stainless steel. So then these sheets are cut onto a cut plan before they go to the press room. Behind you is all of our solar inverters. So the factory is about 70% run on solar.
Oh wow!
So the whole roof is covered in panels. So it's actually cheaper than the grid for us. Yeah. Okay. So then from here, so here's they're cutting strips. So they're cut to strips, then they go from there into the presses.
So they get cut there, and they're moved into this area, which is what? So
this is the tool room. So there's tools here where they punch and form. This machine is just being repaired. So those machines, which are the mechanical presses, will cut a blank. Okay. So they don't form it; they just punch a shape into it.
Okay.
So then that shape is then taken into this press and formed into this.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is the cone deck or the top plate of the Jiko.
Okay.
So you can see where safety is really important for us. For her to engage this press, she needs both hands. So It's not possible for her to put her hand in and operate the machine. Other machines have light curtains, where it's like a force field. You put your hand through it,
It
stops it. Yeah, but this is another way of doing that. So yeah, so we've never had a serious injury after 600,000.
Yeah, I'm looking at her putting her hand through there, and I'm like, I'm a little bit anxious, but I like that you've mentioned that it can't operate unless both hands are on the press.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
So each machine cuts out a different component of the Jiko.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
and then
yeah.
it's just a question of assembling it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
So all these are cutting up different components, different parts.
Correct.
So where does the assembly actually happen?
So the assembly here, the assembly happens for 2 of our products are made on this assembly line. So this makes our new larger Jiko, the Jikokoa Extra, as well as the Kuniokoa, our wood stove. And then the original Jikokoa is made on the other side. So this is our production laser. So right now, because they're fixing those presses, they're actually making the blank here on the laser.
Oh,
So
wow.
the part that I just showed you out there is actually coming off the laser right now. So just during the maintenance of that tool, we'll make it on this machine. This machine will also make the tubes, which is the combustion chamber. So I'll show you that. So this machine takes the tube and cuts this whole pattern into it. So it's very precise. It's not done by hand. It's all done by the laser.
And it's the same material?
No.
Because this one feels a little bit heavier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely it's a thicker gauge.
Okay.
But it's also a different alloy. So each of these are different alloys, and so it's all about making Jikos is all about value engineering. So you want to use the right material for the right task. The combustion chamber is 1,000 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
So that's the temperature you used for melting and producing steel. So it's very difficult to make a combustion chamber that doesn't die
Okay.
as a combustion chamber. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So then now we're going to put these 2 parts together in the assembly line.
I mean, in a plant such as this, where there's so many moving parts and little different components, how do you track where each component ends up to the final assembly point? Because I guess because all of the parts fit in like a jigsaw inevitably to everyone. So is there a way of confusing the parts, or it's all just the same thing?
No, not really. I mean, the team that we have here, almost all of the employees we've had here, we've had for 4 years. So our production team, our quality team, know the process inside and out. And so basically, each will make about 2,000 of each part. And so those parts then are in WIP, or work in progress.
Okay.
So you'll see these bins around
okay.
which have those 2,000 parts, and then we'll batch run those through on the assembly line.
Okay.
But so now we'll go and take a look over here.
How many units of these do you move in a month, would you say?
About 20,000.
Okay, wow.
Right now we're working on a new deal that will add an extra 30,000. So we'll do 50,000 Jikos a month. That's why we're building the new factory behind, so we just added an extra 15,000 square feet, so that we'll be able to make an extra
to meet the capacity.
Yeah. So now you can see they've got the cone deck, and they've got the cylinder for the combustion chamber. They're now going to put these together using a jig and fixture. So it's relatively unskilled work. So you don't need to be a craftsman or an artisan to make it. You just need to put the parts in the jig and the fixture and then weld it together.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the machine will do the welding.
Correct.
For
Yeah.
you.
So this you can see placing the 2 parts in here. Then this is a welder that then basically self-locates itself into the exact right spot.
Oh, so this is the final component that's come out of there that's been
Correct.
pressed.
Yeah. So they've attached the pot. They've attached the pot supports, the cone deck, and the combustion chamber all into one final piece. So this is the quality inspection table. So the people in the orange jackets that you see are all the quality team.
Okay.
Then from there, it will go into final assembly.
And so the key question and the final question is really, what separates this Jiko from your conventional Jiko?
Everything. Yeah. I mean, there's so many different things that have gone into this, so it looks sort of like a very simple sort of bucket of metal, but it's really 20,000 hours of engineering, optimizing airflow, optimizing insulation, optimizing heat transfer on the top of the stove. So the height of the pot support, the diameter of the stove, all of those things have been tested many times to find that optimal pattern.
And so,
but the main thing basically, very low mass, and we're able to, because of the airflow in the stove, we're able to generate enough airflow that we're able to light and ignite that body of charcoal very quickly. If you get charcoal above 600 degrees Celsius, you'll burn the carbon monoxide. So this small batch of fuel, we're able to elevate it to a high temperature quickly, and then that allows us to get high temperatures, clean burning, and save 60% compared to the ceramic.
And where would I be able to buy one of these?
Yeah, great question. I mean, there's about 800 retail points across the country, so any Nivus, Tuskies, Choppies, Carrefour. If you're part of a bank like KWFT or Equity Bank, MCOPA, so pay-as-you-go solar, you can buy it through anyone.
If I'm looking at this as a youth and I wanted to get into this kind of manufacturing, what are some of the traits that I would need to have?
Yeah, well, there's a real shortage of good design engineers or manufacturing engineers in Kenya. So yeah, we would definitely encourage young people to go into design engineering or mechanical engineering for manufacturing, because there's going to be an explosion of manufacturing in Kenya to serve the whole continent. So those are kind of the skills that are missing. So yeah, those are, and so we have a couple of really great young Kenyan design engineers that are part of our new product development team.
Well, Peter, thank you so much for the amazing work you're doing for the environment, for Kenya, and for the world at large. This has been awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting us to your factory, and we wish you all the very best in your journey.
Awesome.
Thanks, man.
Cool. Let's go light some stoves now.
Oh yeah,
now
let's do that. Oh yeah, let's go do that. Okay. Well,
It's all about love.
let's see if we can get this love going.
Yeah. All right, let's try to get the fire going.
All right.
So here,
So chuck a few cups.
yeah, a few pieces. Get a few extra pieces in there.
All right. Should we rip those up?
You could just really roll them into more like a ball.
Okay.
I kind of want to get them a little bit more scrunched. Definitely, it's not going to work the first time.
Well,
So we should just lower everyone's
expectation.
expectations about this.
All right. So we don't want to block anything, right?
Yeah, you don't want to block. I mean, it's kind of a joke that we've got a bunch of a bunch of dudes doing this, because definitely Kenyan women are much better than we will be.
I think that should be good.
There you go. Yeah.
Yep.
So then we're gonna put a few sticks on top.
All right.
Okay. So then you're just gonna light it, and then you're gonna push it through this door.
Boom, like that. Okay.
How you doing?
Come on, Daddy. Come on.
Come on, baby, light my fire. Yeah, once it catches.
Oh, and then we just add more wood.
Yeah, then we just start adding wood in from the front.
Oh, from the front.
Once that's caught. So you can see here, well, you see how these little jets of air coming in from the side there? Maybe yours isn't there yet, but you see on this one? There's a little.
Yeah.
So what's happening is we have a combustion chamber, and outside the combustion chamber is a cowling. And then, so that between the cowling and the combustion chamber, there's air is drawn up through the bottom of the stove. There's actually holes here. So it draws it up around the combustion chamber and then shoots it in above on top of the fire, and that gives you some nice secondary combustion.
And it's amazing. Just tiny little bits of wood, and this thing is burning.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. So yeah, when I even for me when I go camping with this thing, I'll just spend 4 or 5 days camping and just use twigs that I find on the ground. Yours actually is looking a little bit better than mine. You're doing Mwenesi.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, nicely done. It's a bit windy out here right now, so
should we keep the door? Doesn't really matter, right?
No, the door is there actually because we want to. What's happening here is there's an ashtray right here that you see. Mm-hmm. So that ashtray, we actually underneath it there's an opening. So we're trying to get air to be drawn in underneath the ashtray and then go up through the grate. So this door actually is stopping cold air from going in front. Gotcha. The wind is is not being our friend right now. So here, let's actually put our pots on top here. To make it look good.
Well, guys, if ever there was a lit episode, that had to be it.